Well, hello. The music ended. We're jumping in 5 seconds early. Technically the most difficult part of these lives is that countdown with the music. I clearly need a producer. It's a one-man show here. I am thrilled to be live with you again. It is Thursday. It is time for weekly wedding prep live. So much to cover today. I can't wait to get into it. I was almost late. I think I was late because I'm reading the comments here. I saw a question about the love story caster in our software Officiantly. And I can't wait to talk to you about that. Questions I'm seeing in the chat, questions that were sent to me. I want to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about before I jump in and say hello and see how the weather is all over the world, wherever you're watching from. Please jump into the chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, that's the only place to watch it now, but live, log in to your Google account and then you can comment along with everybody else. I see members of Unboring Wedding Academy. I see non-members. If you want to become a member right this minute, unboringweddingacademy.com. Purchase the course. You get access to Officiantly. You're a member. I was just shooting some bonjoros right before we went live here to new members. So hello, Judy. Hello, Alex, if you're watching. Scott came in this morning. And I absolutely love welcoming new members personally with the video and seeing so many of you in the chat, whether you're a member, whether you're a non-member. This is for officiants and celebrants all over the world. We have weddings coming up. I love responding to your questions, but I am not the great and powerful Oz mind for sure. It is the members in the chat that make this so rewarding as well. So when it comes to your questions, keep an eye on the chat because not only will I respond, but amazing, experienced officiants. I talk about our members only Facebook group. Whenever I shoot a welcome video, I say some members they're almost up to 800 members in the Facebook group, and some have been in there for a few days, and some have been in there for years, which I absolutely love. Some of you OGs from 2017 are still active in the Facebook group. I absolutely love it. And so you guys make this special. So keep an eye out in the chat. If you ask a question, these incredible veterans will be happy to pounce on that and share their wisdom with you. Today, I want to talk about some really good questions I had. One of them involving how do I memorize the script? And a little teaser, do you need to memorize your script? We're going to unpack that a little bit. Another one was a question from a member who was recently at a wedding show. 2 thumbs up. If you are trying to get this off the ground professionally, your officiating practice, go to wedding shows. Of course, I talk about that a lot in the pro course that I offer for people who are interested in the business side of officiating, unboringweddingacademy.com/pro. I elaborate on what you do at a wedding show, the exact strategy, what you need to bring, how do you conduct yourself, how do you make conversation. But there was an interesting curveball that was thrown at this person who asked me a question and asked me how I would respond. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about that. And then somebody asked me to talk a little bit more about the religious stuff I was talking about yesterday, particularly like if I am asked to do religious elements, where do I find them? How do I write them? That kind of thing. So we'll delve into that a little bit more, as well as questions I'm seeing here. But please say hello in the chat. Let us know. Cantor Mark was the first one today. You win. 100 points for you. Thanks for being here. And I also saw Sabrina here from San Antonio, second to say hello. And then Chris Taylor, 131.93. Hello from a blustery cold North Carolina. It is wet and chilly today. They're kind of like bone chill. It is kind of 5 degrees and drizzly. All the snow's melting. The local ski hill is closed. I mean, come on. If either let's do winter, let's do it, or let's just get right to spring. This in-between thing in January is for the birds, especially in Canada. Let's just do it. So it sounds like in North Carolina, I mean, I'm sure you're not expecting snow anytime soon, but cold and blustery, that's what's happening here too. And Paul is here checking in from sunny but cool Connecticut. Paul's got a ceremony on March 15th. That's amazing. So I'm sure you're prepping for that. Greetings, everyone. Scott is here. So good to be with you, Scott. When Scott is not being a professor, he's always a professor. When he's not teaching, he is working on his wedding officiating, and love to see you here, Scott. Scott's got all the things. Scott's got the the pro course. He's got our website template, unboringweddingacademy.com/website. He's got the academy. So Scott, you are going all in. I absolutely love that. Laura's here. Good to see you. High of 59 and sunny in Humble, Texas. You're up this Friday with Patrice and Michael. So congrats to you. I'm sure you are getting ready for that. Maybe you have a rehearsal. Wedding's Friday. So you're doing a Thursday rehearsal. Are you doing a rehearsal? Let us know, how's it coming together. Were Patrice and Michael excited to share their story with you? This is Weekly Wedding Prep. We love to hear details about specific ceremonies. I know at Wedding MBA, where, typically there's keynote speakers in Vegas in November. A lot of the officiants this year were hoping for more of a panel or an open mic. That is, I believe, coming back this year for 2026. We officiants just love to hear stories and get the deets about ceremony process. How do you do what you do? How's your ceremony? How's it coming together? That kind of thing. There's just something really fun about it. So that's amazing. Janelle's got that. Jay Nelson, sorry, not Janelle. Jay Nelson Midla. I'll just call you Jay now. Has a great question. Can I copy and post on Lovecaster a couple's response that was not included in the survey? So that's an interesting question about Officiantly. So I'm going to give you some context, or is it just about the old unupdated love story caster? If it is, I would not recommend. Like, originally, before we developed Officiantly, this platform that is absolutely incredible, you can check it out, officiant.ly. I created something called the Love Story Caster. Like, that's 2 years ago, but we don't update it anymore. I've talked about that here. I don't really recommend using it. It's good to kickstart, but it's not really the recipe. As the language model evolves for AI, you need to continue to update the recipe. So that's what Officiantly does. That's what the Love Story Caster inside Officiantly does. But if you're talking about Officiantly, there is a couple things that I can tell you about that. I don't want this to get too inside baseball for people who don't have Officiantly. We are here to talk about wedding ceremonies and that kind of thing. But I appreciate your question, and I will get to it. Absolutely. We've got Canner Mark giving us the California forecast, 80 degrees, sunny SoCal, Thousand Oaks. Your pianist, music director hooking the 10-year-old grandson in the 91-year-old I married 29th with a piano and member of the big band is giving. A what? Hate the... Okay. I should have vetted that before I just started reading. Are you okay, Mark? Is there a limit to the size? So I got some of that. We got a 91-year-old. We got a pianist music. We got a 10-year-old grandson. We got Mark. You and I have been on this journey for years. I absolutely love hanging out with you, and you and you make me laugh even when you're not trying to make me laugh. Sabrina, good afternoon from Georgia, and boy, is it cold in Georgia. I'm sure it is. It's all relative, right? Okay, so Jay Nelson says, my first and only ceremony is April 11th in South Carolina. I'm messaging you from home, Hammond, Louisiana. That's amazing. So you've got one coming up on the 11th. What do you mean your first and only? You mean the only one coming up, right? Because you're going to do this more and more, I'm sure. You can't just do one. You get the bug. Once the learning curve is pretty steep for your first ceremony, but then once you do it, you're pretty jazzed about it. And you want to continue, especially once you break the ice on that first one, you get more, because so much of the work is just that first one. And then it's like rolling off a log. You still got to replicate, every single ceremony is bespoke and customized for your couple. You tell the love story, all that. You put that work in. But so much of it is the presence up there that when it's your first time, even though you're going to do amazing, and especially when I teach the method of engaging the guests, and right away, when the first 10 seconds, you're shaking off the rust, you feel really great about being up there. And then, yeah, you're off to the races. You want to do it again for sure. Hey, Reverend Claudia is here. Speaking of the OG from super snowy Lake Erie. I'm glad it's snowy where you are. I heard that Ontario got absolutely slammed with snow. We just don't have the cold temperatures for that here on New Brunswick. That's why I got out of Ontario. I lived in Ottawa, the second coldest capital in the world, just next to Moscow. It is freezing there. I went out and discovered other places in the world, Korea, Toronto, now the East Coast. You don't have to be dying all the time of cold in the winter. Dimples, hi, unboring fam. Good to see you. Jack is here. Michigan, 12 degrees. Feels like zero. Wow, that's zero Fahrenheit. Or are we talking? Are we talking Celsius? I don't know if you guys are just being kind to me and using Celsius, that kind of thing. Hey, good to see you, Koa, from Temecula, California. And Jeff is here from sunny Southern California. Oh, speaking of Ottawa, hello, Christine. Good to see you from my hometown, my old stomping grounds. Let's see. Oh, Koa says, I've still been using the Lovecaster. I need to get with the Officiantly. Yeah, you absolutely do. Because the Love Story Caster is definitely outdated at this point. I said I would never take it down. I do get updates that some of you are still using it and finding it useful and finding it helpful, which is great. But I would say, I mean, Cantor Mark talked about this, I think, last week, that, or was it Ben? Somebody, one of you incredible officiants who just do it right. You said recently you put the couple's responses went into the Love Story Caster, and the result that was produced was so incredible you didn't have to change a single word, which that's a high bar, right? Typically I say you'll want to change some things, 5 or 10 minutes of punching it up a little bit, brushing up here and there. But the results of the recent update and the recipe that I wrote, again, it took another 10, 15 hours or so to get it right. It's absolutely incredible. Good to see you here, Turter Smith. I met with a couple, allowed them the program, showed them the program, talked with them about the love story. They don't like the idea of telling their story or all the nice things that people want to tell about them. Okay, well, that's always a bit of a bummer. You met with the couple. I wonder if that means you have booked them and signed them, or if that means that it was just like a chem check or a vibe check that we talked about. Feel free to give me a little bit more info on that. It's a great comment. I will say, Terry, that we got two folks from Ottawa here. We got Christine from Ottawa and we got Terry from Ottawa. The officiant scene is blowing up in my old hometown. Again, I would be living in Ottawa if it weren't so cold. I love Ottawa. Went to Ottawa University. Grew up as an ardent Ottawa Senators fan. Worked at the Rideau Center. Lived downtown. So awesome. But man, I just can't get over those winters. Back to what we're here for. Oh, the chat cuts you off at 200 characters. Well, just keep it short. Keep it short, Mark. Short and sweet, as couples sometimes tell us about the wedding ceremony they want. So this is one of those things where, you know, I always say the couple's the boss, right? They decide the kind of ceremony they want. Now, so if a couple says to you, no, we don't want our story. No, we don't want what you said specifically here, things that people want to write about them, then it just sounds like they want something very traditional. However, I would say you can still do amazing. You can still be that presence, engage the guests the way I teach in the course, those 5 key moments throughout the ceremony of direct guest engagement, getting people smiling, getting people laughing. That's, I mean, guests remember how they feel, right? I always say that. They might not be able to recount word for word what was said in the ceremony. They tend to remember the couple's story even years later when you tell, and I say that from experience. I have met people who are at weddings that I officiated. Yes, New Brunswick is not that big a province. So I've bumped into people like out in public saying, years ago, you officiated for my friend or my niece or whatever. I loved hearing their story. They'll recount a couple funny things that happened in the story, but they will say, it was incredible. It was so fun. So people remember how they feel in the ceremony, and they remember how the story went, because we are wired for story more than for facts, which is why, you know, ancient myth. All right, I'm going the Joseph Campbell route here, but you know, ancient myth, kind of facts about the world in ancient times are set in story so that you remember the facts. We don't do that so well anymore, post-enlightenment. But so I don't get too distressed when if a couple were to say that to me, we don't want our story, we don't want you to say the nice things. Now, I would catch that personally in the chem check. So before I book any couple, I meet with them. I have 2 tomorrow. And I'm going to talk to them about the process, which it sounds like maybe you did here, Terry. And And if they were to say in that meeting, oh, we don't want our story and we don't want the blah, blah, I say, oh, well, that's what makes it really, really amazing. And I would say to them kind of what I said to you, like, people want to hear your story. It's all about you. It's so personal. But you don't push too hard because ultimately they have a vision and it's whatever they want. Now, it sounds like they may want what they love about each other. You left that part out because that's kind of the speech formula that I teach. The story, what they love about each other, what everybody loves about them, and then a brief reflection, which when you're a professional, you just talk about the why. We are here today because these two are pledging their lives to each other, etc. It's not that long, it's brief. But without the story and what they love about each other and what everybody loves about them, then really it's just like, here's why we're here today. 2 minutes about that maybe, and then you get right into the elements. Now, for me, I don't have a package. I don't have an a la carte package where you take all that out. And frankly, I would say that's where most of the work is. The Love Story Caster, as we've discussed, makes it super easy. You send your couple of their questionnaires. They reply inefficiently. Those answers get automatically popped in where they need to go. I'm going to show you this to answer Jay Nell's question about the Love Story Caster. So you'll see this in action in a moment. But that's where a lot of the work is, and the substance of the ceremony, you could say, the substance that where you're just talking about the couple, just radiating attention and focus and love and laughter onto them about their story. So if they don't want that at all, then really it's quite a brief ceremony, I would say. But pivoting out of that, I would ask the couple, oh, so what is your vision then? What would you like? And frankly, as I've said before, I wouldn't actually love officiating without telling that story, because it's really outsized. It's exponentially huge when you look at the guests, tell the couple's story to the guests. I mean, the way they start to feel about you, about that couple, about that ceremony experience is just, like I say, it's just larger than life. So you take that away and people are going to feel great because of the presence you bring. You're still going to engage the guests at those key moments. You can still say, here they are to get married. Can I get an amen? That kind of thing. Keep it fun. But that really takes out a lot of the heart of the ceremony. And for me, in a chem check, if a couple said that, I might just say, I don't know that I'm right for you. You might want to look at another officiant. Now, of course, I don't want to turn away business. I don't want to turn a couple away if they really want an officiant. But I do want them to know how much I love to do that part, how much I want to do that part, and how much it exponentially adds to their ceremony and to the guest experience. So, Terry, what happened? You said it was a vibe check. They loved you. Awesome. I'm glad you followed up in the comments. Preferred another version of the ceremony. They liked it, but now they have not returned the contract. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. So we've talked here before, Terry, about how if they haven't returned the contract, maybe you want to poke them one more time with an example ceremony. I did get a question about that earlier this week from someone saying, how do you choose which ceremony to send them? First of all, the question that I got this week was, hey, Mark, a couple asked for a story. Do you share the story freely with them? And if you've been on the live here a lot, you know that I freely share my full script with the story. And in terms of the question, how do I pick? Well, I just choose one that I really thought was an amazing story. Now, in your case, this could work both ways. They might look at it and say, well, we don't want the story. Or they might read that story and say, oh my gosh, this really is amazing. We really, really do want this. So it could actually, tip them over to wanting the story. When do I do this? When do I send the full script? Well, if I have a vibe check, like say tomorrow, I have two. A lot of couples, let's say half the couples decide to book me right away. The other half, they sit on it, they wait. And I tell them, when call to action at the end of the meeting, I say, have you made a decision or would you like more time to think? They look at each other. Sometimes they say, oh, no, we want to go with you. Other times they say, we really want to think about it. And so, just give us a little bit. We'll get back to it. I say, absolutely. I'll follow back up with you. I do. Sometimes that evening, at the very longest, the next morning, 24 hours would be, it's earlier than 24 hours because I kind of want to capitalize on the great feeling we had. Like Terry said, they loved me. They were excited. So What I do in that follow-up email is I say, hey, loved meeting with you. I want to officiate for you. I really enjoyed you. If you have any questions, reach out. Here is a story. I attach it. I say, use it for your own personal use. Take a read. And I just say, this is not prescriptive. It's not what your ceremony will be. It's what another couple's ceremony looked like. And it's the kind of thing we can create for you. That is, to me, a lot of couples reach back out and say, oh my gosh, we were crying, we were laughing, we don't even know this couple. That was the deal breaker. It was amazing. And where do we sign? So sometimes it can help them out. On the other hand, screening your couples is always a good thing. Many of the speakers at Wedding MBA, we've said this, you do not want to be booking 100% of your couples. If you were, that would mean you are either, too cheap, or you are trying to be everything to everybody. You're just vanilla. It's kind of like people walk off the street and say, you're hired. You want to be more niche than that. You want to be appealing to a specific kind of client and that doesn't mean you just have one kind of offering. You can have a premium, you can have a lower end, but you want to be you, and don't ever worry about when a couple's saying, you know what, you weren't for us. That still happens to me. And I am excited because it means that the process of meeting with them, making sure we're a fit, it means it was successful. It means that it served its purpose. To quote Mark Maron, I'm not for everyone. Some days, even I'm not for me. So being aware of that is absolutely fine. But you might want to help them out a little bit, Terry, and just say, well, you did all that, everything I said. So that's great. You're going to share your story. And again, this kind of ties into the question I got this week. Do you send the story? Absolutely, especially if asked. Which story do you choose? I just choose one of my personal favorites. You want to keep it updated. Like if I sent a story that was 5 years old, it probably wouldn't be as good as one that I told this past year in 2025. So choose your favorite story, your most recent story, and you are kind of off to the races. Mark says pretty soon. Mark's still going on about the 200 character limit. Soon we'll all have to communicate in hashtags, emojis, acronyms, and taglines. Good to see you here, Ara from Philadelphia. Thrilled that you are here as well. I want to talk to you about what I promised. Starting off with the question I got about how do I memorize the script? And here is my response to that. You do not need to memorize the wedding script. As a wedding officiant, this is what I love about officiating, is you are expected to stand there and read. I say this in the course. It is not weird when an officiant stands there and reads. In fact, I would say, with no disrespect to those of you, and I do know that there are officiants out there who may be watching, because I've heard of it, officiants who wing it. They've done vows and rings and that so many times, they don't need any sort of scripting. Whether that's true or not, I do think that there's something in the photos of me officiating, you see, to the officiant standing there, and including my bobblehead. Thank you, Jane. To standing there with the open binder, with that kind of centering presence, and reading the script. I've been told by guests that I remind them of Stuart McLean, which is a very specific style, famous Canadian author who would sell out amphitheaters just reading his books and stories. People loved it. Reading does not take away in any way from the experience when you're officiating. When I speak on stage in other settings, I've run for office, I give keynote speeches, I give the odd sermon in churches. Of course, then I'm trying not to read the whole thing. You don't stand there with a binder in that case. But when it comes to officiating, it's totally appropriate. So I would say get as comfortable with your script as you need to in order to just read well, to not be surprised by your own script. Like a certain politician who, when he reads the teleprompter, you can tell it's his first time reading and he gets surprised by the things he reads and he reacts to the things he reads in real time as though they weren't his ideas. You don't want to do that. You want to know your script really well and know everything that's coming up. So you just practice enough to read it well. However, this is a big however, if there were some parts to memorize for the sake of connecting with the guests and seeming to be more in the moment, and I say seeming because you're going to be in the moment no matter whether you're reading or not, but there may be a few points of the ceremony that you want to memorize, okay? And so here they are. And this is like bonus. Even if you're a member of Unboring Wedding Academy, I say in the course, you don't need to worry about memorizing. But because I was pressed by this member of the course who said, how do I memorize? And of course I say, don't memorize. I don't think this person got to stage 6 yet, where I say that, the very last stage where it's about the wedding day, because their wedding is in about 10 days. Maybe they're still digesting the course. I want to talk to you now about 5 places in the ceremony that you could memorize if you want to, if you're so inclined, okay? And here they are. I'll just list them out for you and then kind of circle back. The first place script that you want to memorize for the ceremony is the opening remarks. If this is all the caveat is if you must, you don't need to, it still works. But something that I've noticed, because I've officiated hundreds and hundreds of ceremonies, essentially following the same format every single time, the opening remarks, I do not, I have my binder here, I do not have it open during that part. I typically have it under my arm and I'm looking out at the guests. And so the opening remarks for me are memorized. The second place that you may want to memorize is the question to the escort for the marrier coming down the aisle. So in a traditional setting, it would be a bride, it could be a groom, but in this case, we'll just say the bride comes down the aisle with a parent. They will tell you in the wedding workshop that you have with them, the planning session, they will tell you whether they want a question to their escort or parents and what that question would be. And that's where, in the procession, I said I'd list them out first before going into detail. Opening remarks, the question for the marrier's escort. I'm getting out of myself. The next one would be the pronouncement. How do you want to pronounce them? That comes off really well when you have memorized it, because ideally you're moving out of the way. The fourth place that you might want to memorize is the closing remarks. Those come off really well if you're not reading. And then the presentation, the very last words out of your mouth. Those come off really well, again, if you're not reading. Now, you can read any and all of those, but let me talk to you about why. So opening remarks, again, I have my binder tucked under my arm and I'm really connecting with the guests. I say, hey friends, are you ready for these two? Are you ready for Sam and Alex to get married? Everybody cheers. I say, wonderful. Couple of things for you to know. First of all, my name is Mark. It is my honor to officiate for Sam and Alex today. And I'm looking around at the guests like this. Again, because I've done it so many times, it is memorized. Early on, I did not memorize this. I had my binder open. It has the same effect if you're comfortable. But hey, if you want to memorize, do not memorize the story or the elements, the vows, the ring exchange. You can read all of that. But there are just some times where, like I say, it is a bit more of a connection when you have your binder under your arm closed and you're making more direct eye contact with the guests. So the opening remarks are a great time to do that. Then you say, let's begin. And then the processional happens. Like I say, the processional, you're not likely going to be standing there with your book open. In fact, I get out of the way. If there's a marrier standing up there and another marrier is coming down the aisle towards them, I step away from that marrier. I have my binder closed. A lot of the time I'll have my finger in the page where it needs to be when I open it. And here's what I mean. Yeah, I came prepared. My binder looks like this, and my script has multiple pages in a page protector, obviously like this. And when it comes to the processional, if I have the binder closed, well, the first few pages of my script are all in blue. You see that? It's all stage directions. I can show you what this looks like Officiantly before I print it, including the entrance. That's all here. And but then there's the question to the marrier's escort. In this case, you can see here, Gary, do you stand? And do you see how I have that circled? This is part of my memorization work, is something I do right before the ceremony when I arrive on site. But then when I start speaking, it's going to be on this page. Please be seated. And again, the stage directions are all there in blue. This is what Officiantly does. It puts stage directions in blue and speaking parts in black. And I'm going to start speaking here. Friends and family, we know that Mariah and Dylan are here today to get married, etc. So when I open my binder, I am going to want to not have to shuffle around in my pages. So once Mariah comes in front and then Dylan, I'm going to step between them. I'm going to say hello to Mariah, who just arrived. And I'm going to say, please be seated, everybody. Then I'm going to open my binder. And this is where I don't want to be fumbling around trying to find my place. So you see here, one thing you can do for that is put a little sticky note so that you can just immediately open it and know exactly where you need to be to say friends and family, because that part is definitely where you are going to be reading. But do you see here? So the first thing is those opening remarks. Then I close my binder, and I do not want to have to reopen it, taking center again. In this case, because I needed to ask Mariah's dad the question, and it was, Gary, do you give your blessing and support? Was it Gary? Yeah, I believe it was Gary. I circled it, and that helped me remember. It was Gary. I am not going to say that as a disembodied voice from the place that I was hiding before. I'm going to step back in. I'm going to, like when Mariah gets to the front row and Dylan was right there, I'm going to step to the center at that time. And this is why memorization is good, because to open the binder and look like you couldn't even remember that part is not the greatest. Again, it's not bad, but it's best when I step in with my binder still under my arm and I look at Gary and I say, Gary, do you give your blessing and support for Mariah's marriage to Dylan today? Just like that. I did not need the binder. I did not need to read it. And I remembered it was Gary because of some of the memorization work I did right before, okay? And I wouldn't say memorization work. It's not like I'm drilling myself with flashcards before the ceremony, but I'll tell you one thing that I do right before the ceremony. The circle was the spoiler. So there's that part. Then once, she steps forward, Dylan goes down, brings her forward, they stand in front of me, etc. That's where the binder opens when they're doing that, and I kind of find my place with the tab. It's easier. Say, please be seated. Everybody sits down, and then I begin. All the ceremony is reading from there up to the third place where I said you might want to memorize, which is the presentation. All these years later, I still get the presentation and the pronouncement. I don't get them mixed up, but they come out of my mouth. Even though I mean one thing, I might say another. The pronouncement. Pronouncing them married is different than presenting them at the very end. The pronouncement you want to have perhaps memorized, and I say that with a tiny M because you're going to see it. You're going to see the words on the script when you get to that part. So you don't need to necessarily memorize it. However, if you're stepping away, I'll show you right here. With great joy in front of your closest friends and family, by the authority given by the New Brunswick, I pronounce you husband and wife. Dylan, you may kiss your bride. That's something that you're moving out of the way when you say husband and wife. I take the mic. I try to do it fluidly and quickly, but don't rush this. It's better to be out of the picture when they go in for the kiss, and you don't want to be like in a stages of retreat, right? You don't want to be like stop motion for the photographer taking that picture. So pronounce you husband and wife. It's really easier to move when you close your binder. So I typically snap my binder shut, smile at them, take the mic, and then Dylan, you may kiss your bride. But by then I'm gone and I didn't need to read that part. So that's another line that you want to memorize ideally. The fourth time is the closing remarks. So you probably want to, if there's a signing or right after the kiss, whatever you do there, the closing remarks come off really well, especially after the signing and the moving. You're going to get out of the way from the kiss, but then I do like to look at the guests and say, after the signing, I typically say, they signed the papers, the ink is dry, they're legitimately married now. Everybody claps and cheers. Okay, a couple of things for you to know as we transition. The bride and groom are heading out for photos. In the meantime, head beyond those doors. It is cocktail hour. Enjoy the drinks, refreshments, and the grounds. You are asked to be at the reception tent at the front of the building for 6 o'clock. Like, so if I can just spin that out, looking at the guests, looking at the couple, there is a real this part is supercharged. That's why there's a whole other rabbit hole I can go down here, talking about why you don't do the closing remarks after you send them up the aisle and then try to herd cats. The music's playing, it's over. Let the pronouncement and the recessional be the very last thing. This moment when the couple turns, faces the aisle, and you're giving those closing remarks, it is electric. People love it. They're looking at the couple are looking at them. And I like to be a part of that moment, not reading it. So if you must memorize a fourth time, it is the closing remarks, and then moving right out of the closing remarks. Friends and family, stand with us now. It is my honor to present to you for the very first time, and it's likely either going to be Dylan and Mariah as husband and wife, or Mr. and Mrs. Ferguson, whatever it is. That's something you want to have memorized. So you don't need to, if you're going to memorize the closing remarks, definitely memorize the presentation. Now, the presentation is super important. It's the last words out of your mouth. You need to land that plane really solid, not stumbling. Oh, what's the last name? Or saying, first names as husband and wife when they wanted Mr. and Mrs. last name. So that is always, I'm sorry to say, there's no, and when it comes to a wedding ceremony, there's no, oh, I'm out of the woods because I'm through the middle. The last word out of your mouth is the most important. You're not out of the woods until you say the last words for the presentation and they head up the aisle. Then you're out of the woods. That's just something fun about officiating a wedding. It's only over when it's over. You can never rest on your laurels until that moment. So those are the 5 parts of the ceremony that I would say, if you wanted to memorize those, you could memorize those. And the reason why I said if you memorize the 4th part, you need to memorize the 5th, because you're not going to give your closing remarks. It would be a really bad look. And this I can say with confidence. Don't memorize 4 if you don't memorize 5. Don't memorize closing remarks if you don't memorize presentation. You don't want to finish the closing remarks smoothly with no binder and then, okay, stand with us now. I present to you for the very first time, Mr. and yeah, that was cringe, right? So memorize 4 and 5, or neither 4 nor 5. Okay. So what do I do to memorize? And again, I've done this hundreds of times, so I can do it pretty well, but every ceremony is going to be different in terms of, whether or not the couple wants photos or not. So that changes ceremony to ceremony. Also, you want to acknowledge the photographer. I usually say, please put your cameras away, no photos. Shannon is here, and Lindsay. If there's a second shooter, I always get their names ahead of the ceremony. I love to say the photographer's names, acknowledge them. Shannon and Lindsay are doing the amazing professional photography work. We don't want any devices in those photos today, and so please, if you could put them away. That'll change. So you'll say that before. I typically get the photographer's name in the wedding workshop, all the vendors from the couple, and write those down. The second shooter, though, is often a day of, oh, hi there, what's your name? And maybe you've met them before. The photographer usually recruits a second shooter. It might be another professional, it might be somebody, a sidekick they always hire. So you want to find out the names typically right before the ceremony. And on the way to the ceremony, when I'm driving there, typically I am, and I've told you this before, a little secret, I'm saying the couple's name over and over and over like a mantra. So Dylan and Mariah, Mariah and Dylan, Mariah and Dylan, Mariah and Dylan, Mariah and Dylan. You look like a psychopath if they're with, you look like Rain Man or something, but that is what I do. I'm just saying Mariah and Dylan, Mariah and Dylan in my head the whole time, out loud, Mariah and Dylan, just because I don't want to say another couple's name at all. Picture their faces, picture their names. If you're a couple, I'm basically if you're watching this and you're a couple of mine, I'm like meditating over you on the way, because I want to get your name right and I want to be able to say your names so easily without last week's couple sliding in and coming out of my mouth. So there is that. And this is what I told the response to the email. How do I memorize? I said a couple of things. The first thing is I know what my first line is going to be. Absolutely. So that's the hardest part, I would say, is you step up front and you look at all those strange faces, and somebody's hat might distract you for a moment, or you look and you see there's three little kids and you're thinking that's going to be a problem. But and you don't want to freeze up in that moment. So early on, I know what and I do this still. I know what my opening line is going to be because I have rehearsed it. I get up there and I say, "Good afternoon, everyone." And nobody says anything about, okay, we have this whole place to ourselves. I just heard how noisy you can be, especially if it is a noisy crowd. Sometimes the room is just roaring before you get up there. And so you get up there and you say, "Good afternoon," and everyone's quiet. And I love that. I say, "Come on now. I just heard how rowdy and noisy you can be. Don't go quiet on me now." Typically, yeah. So I'm thinking of that in the minute before I get up there. Personally, I know that it's good to, you show up 45 minutes before, you do all your checks. You might want to network and say hello, press the flesh a little bit with guests. But then I find myself, I go into kind of a quiet meditative state in the 5 minutes before I corral everybody, which is typically 3 or 4 minutes before. So, finding the Marrier's wedding party and getting them all to align. I'm a part of that. If there's a planner, sometimes we do it in tandem. But I do find myself getting kind of quiet before the ceremony. Again, remembering the couple's names, knowing the first thing out of my mouth, and going over those important parts of the ceremony where I don't want to use my notes. And so this is something I do when I'm filling out the paperwork at the table about half an hour before. I put the paperwork on the signing table. I make sure, and I go through and I circle some parts. Like, do you see here? I circled Sherry was the photographer. So I circled that because that's one of the things that's new. Gary, do you stand in support? I circled that. I'll go through my notes. I'll pull the paper out of the slip cover and circle the names, look at them. And you might want to do that for any part. I've also told you the secret of writing your couple's names, handwriting your couple's names at the top of the page of every single page. That's another handy thing. A lot of us officiants have little hacks like that. But those are some things you can do to help you memorize. I know what my first word is going to be. Then the other thing that I do, especially for opening remarks, is I have a list. I kind of try to remember list form the things I need to say. So for opening remarks, I'm going to say my first line. Then I'm going to introduce myself by name. Then I'm going to tell them I wouldn't say whether or not they can take photos. Well, no, by that point, you may not take photos. Please put your cameras away because Sherry is the photographer. Then I will say, please put your phones on silent. We want to be uninterrupted. And then, are you ready? Are you ready to get these two hitched? Invite the guests to start the ceremony. So I'll remember 5 things. And that's another thing is when you kind of number list what you need to remember in your head, it is another way to memorize. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You remember you got to say 5 things when you get up there. And then you move into it. And like I say, and then throughout the ceremony, and when I'm looking down, I will see the circles of places that maybe upcoming. I didn't want to use my notes, or I wanted to be a little bit more freestyle. I can look and see those circles, see the couple's names, that kind of thing. Those are helpful hacks for you. You do not have to memorize anything in your script. However, if you want to, memorize those 5 key parts of the ceremony: the opening remarks, the escort's question that you will ask, the presentation. The pronouncement, the closing remarks, and then the presentation. Those 5 things. Okay. Lots going on here in the chat. I wanted to, hey, Laura, it's your first time. That's amazing. Absolutely. Laura says, like doing a hand fasting. During a hand fasting, I always read during a hand fasting. I'll read, then I'll put the ribbon on, then I'll read a little bit more, and then typically I'll close my binder and tie it. To your point, though, if you can say things during the hand fasting and you're doing it while you're talking, that's also really, really good. So you're right. That's an example of that. However, I find the wording to be quite formal. I don't want to stumble on it. I don't want to worry about forgetting. And so I typically read and then do. I say something like, while I'm tying the knot, reflect upon, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's pretty quick. And again, in some styles, they tie their own knot. So hand fasting is a lot. But that is an example of identifying places in the ceremony where you say, I'd rather not read at this part. Okay. Oh, I learned this my first time, not it's your first time. Okay. Good to see. Yeah, I'm like, is it your first time here? I've also memorized portions of the hand fasting ceremony, which made it easier to put my binder down. Okay, yeah. So there you go. Handfasting is a favorite for memorizing. John, good to see you. Better late than never. Absolutely. Nancy is here. That's great. Hey, Hung Emery, you're getting married on the 24th. So excited. Congratulations. You're in a room full of officiants here. So thrilled that you were along. And hopefully this gives you ideas for your officiant, or you can send them our way, unboringweddingacademy.com. Absolutely. We would love for them to write you an unboring style ceremony. You can gift the course when you're checking out at unboringweddingacademy.com. It just sends them a link. You pay and they get to join. So that is possible as well. Mitt, good to see you. Great question this week from someone who is at a wedding show. And if you're here and you want to out yourself, that's fine. But I don't like to get emails and then specifically name people unless you want to be identified. But somebody said they went to a wedding show and they heard most often when, of course, you're standing there with your sign and you say, I'm a wedding officiant. Typically, I say, hey there, at a wedding show. I talk about this in the pro course. Who's getting married? The person identifies themselves. My first question is always, do you have your officiant yet? There's really no sense, and I hate to be so pragmatic because we want to be social, we want to be friendly, we want to be connecting. But hey, do it, get it out of the way, right out of the way. Do you have your officiant or do you not have your officiant? And when I go to a wedding show, I say, hey there, who's getting married? They say, and I say, do you have your officiant yet? And a lot of times they will say, and this person said that's what they heard, is, yeah, our uncle's officiating. We have an officiant. Thank you very much. And the person asked me, what do I say? and to which my response was, you say, that's fantastic. And really, you are not, the takeaway was you do not want to dissuade them. You do not want to pour cold water on their choice of getting their friend, their relative, whoever, to officiate at a wedding show. It's just not a good look to try to discount their choice, okay? At a wedding show, you are doing so much more than just booking brides and grooms. You are putting on a first impression for the friends and family of brides and grooms and the other vendors around you, okay? So I would say cheerlead for any couples. I did suggest in the email, you might want to keep the conversation going. You might want to say, oh, wonderful. What made you choose your uncle? What is it about them that you thought they would bring to the officiating? Instead of just, if our uncle's officiating, you just say, oh, okay. I mean, sometimes I joke and I say, you have an officiant. Well, that's great. And I'm one of the services here you don't need today. And do you have your planner? Do you can do that. You can just say, I guess you don't need my services. How's everything else coming together? That's one choice. But if you want to get more specific, what made you choose your uncle? What is it about them that is a great choice for officiating your ceremony? And again, you are never pouring cold water. You're never trying to make, little sly insinuations that they're going to screw it up or they're not the best choice or they should have gone with you. Because to me, it's almost like being a good loser. I was talking about this with my daughter the other day. She was like, don't my classmates realize, or when I'm in gym class, like we're playing badminton, somebody's not good at badminton, but when they're a sore loser, like that makes them look worse than being bad at badminton. And I said, yeah, you've got it. And so it's the same thing with, when if you're standing there trying to, solicit your services and somebody says, well, we have our officiant. You don't want to come off as a sore loser. Well, no, I'm not going to talking to you as a waste of time, or, oh, well, that's not a good choice, right? You want to say, that's awesome. What is it about your uncle that's so great? What are you excited for your ceremony? That kind of thing. Is your uncle writing the ceremony? You can just ask more exploratory questions, but it's always the second, when I'm at a wedding show, the second I realize this bride or groom is not going to be using my services, but they're surrounded by a cadre of people, maybe you don't know, maybe their mom is with them and they don't like the idea of the uncle officiating. And then they're going to get in the car later and mom will say to, her daughter, you really should consider that professional you saw. Like, you don't know when it's over. You don't know what choices are going to stick. I just got reached out to a few days by somebody who said, our officiant bailed on us. We need help. Can you help us write the ceremony ASAP? It's this Saturday. Well, if that were to happen with the uncle they chose and you put a great impression on at this show, who do you think they're going to call in that emergency? if the uncle falls through, right? So think about that when you're at a wedding show. This is about being your best self, portraying yourself as a true professional, being genuinely curious and interested in every couple, even if they are not going with you. And it's good for market research. Like if somebody says we're having our friend officiate, oh, what is it about them that what made you choose them? Don't say what made you choose a friend as opposed to a professional or me. Specifically, what is it about your friend that makes them, your top choice for being efficient? And then you get them talking. You don't want to get bogged down in too many conversations with individuals, because you kind of got to be a social butterfly, especially when you have a table at a booth. But you definitely don't want to shut down when somebody says, well, we're not going to be hiring you. Stay positive, stay curious, affirm their choice, and you're going to make a great impression for other clients as well. I want to see here what's going on in the chat. Let's see. Nancy says, what do you do with your binder while you're writing? How do you keep your place while you're writing? I must have missed some context. What do I do with my binder when I'm writing? Could you have meant reading, writing, tying the knot? I mean, when I'm not reading, I've become very good at keeping my binder under my arm, like just kind of like this, like a little nutcracker wooden soldier. I'm stiff like this, but I can still use my arms. I don't do it a lot. Like when I'm speaking, I tend to kind of flap it like a wing like this. But if I needed to do some knot tying or that kind of thing, I find this quite easy. I think having a larger binder, I had this custom made. It helps. If it's tiny, you might be worried about losing it. Conversely, if it's too big, you might as well. I'm not totally sure that I got your question, Nancy, but please let me know if we're getting to it or not. How many other new officiants start with doing their daughter's wedding as the first one? Well, a lot, actually. I'll tell you that. My daughter is getting married in May. I downloaded the unlimited version of Officiantly the other day. Oh, Dale, you're Dale. That's amazing. Good to see you, Dale. I do remember that you came in and you purchased the Officiantly course, which will walk you, the Officiantly software, which will walk you through step by step. Hey, so many officiants start with doing their daughter's wedding. So a huge congrats. You're in great company. The program is going to walk you through it super well. I don't believe you purchased the course. You just purchased the software, which is really cool. And that is going to walk you through it step by step. So I'm really, really glad you're here, Dale. Congrats on your daughter getting married. Congrats on being asked to officiate. And I'm glad we got to connect here in this way. Greetings from Venice, Italy. Hey, Ivor, good to see you. Another member as well. Thank you very much for actually reading the message, says Hung Emery. We're all saying congrats to you for getting married. So glad you're here. Good luck with that. Just kidding. How awesome that he can do that for y'all. It is amazing that we have so many people whose uncles, whose friends. That's a phenomenon, right? That number is growing. We know that as professional officiants. But I do think that there's millions of weddings every year. Tens of millions, and it is okay to, I believe in the States it was like 2 million weddings last year, just in the US, and Canada has about 10% of that because we get 10% of the population, etc. But there are lots of weddings out there, and when friends and family fall through, couples do tend to reach out to a professional and say, oh my gosh, it's an emergency, can you help out? Oh, Nancy said, I said that's great, but I wanted to say that they could do better. You wanted to say they could do better, but you didn't, Nancy. Okay, so it's out there. It was Nancy. I love Nancy's questions. Good for you. And you kept it. You handled it well. Good. I congratulate them and say that is beautiful connection for Uncle Joe. Best of love and happiness. Enjoy this wonderful trip. That's it, Carol. You'd say that's amazing. Best of luck to you. I'm just really best of luck. That might not be the great thing to say right after say, our uncle's officiating. Well, good luck to you. You want to be a little bit more appropriate with your language, a little less double entendre for sure. Now, somebody asked, I don't typically, I don't know that we're going to get into the religious language stuff. We might have to push that to next week. I did answer that email, though, by the way, just so you know. But I did want to see, I like to prioritize questions here in the chat as well. Nancy, can I still answer this in a better way? What do you do with your binder while you're writing? It couldn't have been writing, could it? Or am I not understanding the part of writing? But there was a question right off the top from Jay Nelson. Can I copy and paste on Lovecaster a couple's response that were not included in the survey? Now, I'm going to give you a little bit in the last couple minutes here, a view of Officiantly. This is a ceremony where I have not generated the story yet. So the wedding, this is what Officiantly looks like. Dale just mentioned he purchased Officiantly. Officiant.ly, you can do that too. The wedding workshop walks you through all the planning details with your couple. I'm just going to click into here, and you can see, you just answer the questions. So Dale, whether you're a member of the course or not, and if you purchase the course, it walks you through all the training around this. If you just purchase the software, you're not getting training per se, but it is, very intuitive. And we just did a massive update yesterday. It went live, improving it even more. The ceremony script draft, then just the ceremony gets generated from all the information. It gets popped in immediately. There's AI here that can help you write sections of it. But the question was, can I put in some answers in the Love Story Caster, which is way down here? So backing up a bit, you're going to send your couple the questions that you're going to use to write their story. You send it with one click. Invite the couple, boom, boom, there you go. You'll just send that off to them. With one click, they'll get it, and then they'll provide their responses. Now you can view their answers here, but you don't really need to. You're going to send the friends and family the questionnaire, but the couple responses are going to get dropped automatically. When you go to the Love Story Caster section, I'll show you that again right here. Their answers are automatically in these windows already. We made sure the software just says, okay, what did Sam answer? 1, 2, 3, answered it. Alex, 1, 2, 3, just plunk them right in. So your question was, can I copy and paste things that were not in the responses to the questions? Can I put them in? Absolutely, you can do that right here. You can, and this is why I made it editable, because sometimes the couple will answer. So Act 1 here, the first window is how they met, right? You're sending them these 3 questions. How did you meet, the first date, and the proposal? So sometimes the couple will muddy the water a bit. They'll get carried away, and their answer back will be how they met and the first date. And then in Act 2, they'll just say, see above or something like that. Before you generate the love story, and that almost never happens, but before you click generate story, love story, see generate story, it says regenerate here. You get 3 tries in the Love Story Caster. So I've already generated 1 or 2 here for example purposes. You are going to want to, and so this was the story that was generated, but you're going to want to maybe clean up their answers a little bit. Make sure that they're in the proper windows. How they met needs to be Act 1. How they first date, Act 2. Proposal, Act 3. So this is my answer to your question, Jay Nelson. If you add information outside of those parameters, the Love Story Caster is not going to know what to do with it. So if you throw in some anecdote about, I don't know, the way they had their first child or something, where would you put that? It doesn't fit in the proposal. It doesn't fit in the first date. So that's going to make it confusing, and the outcome might not be great. So you can try it. Like I say, you have 3 iterations for the Love Story Caster. And so, you can see the result. You can try, you can paste something. This is going to be blank when you don't generate a story. The first time it's just going to be blank. The story that gets generated gets put here. You can download it right here and then try again. But clean it up here. But I would just say make sure it fits generally within. Tell me about how you first met. Tell me about the first date, and tell me about the proposal. It has been, as we said, like as Mark said, the recipe, what the result that is generated, the recipe that I wrote deals with those 3 panels, gives it specific style instructions, content instructions, lead-in lines to transition from one section to the other. This is all stuff that I have taught in Unboring Wedding Academy, but it happens automatically with Officiantly now without you having to learn it or put it in manually. Now, the course is still extremely valuable because I always say once the story is generated, then, check in on it and punch it up a bit with these story writing principles. But I wanted to show you that because, yes, you can put in, add, delete, change anything before you generate the story. But it's a good idea to keep it to those parameters of the 3-act love story. And honestly, once the story is generated, I mean, the love story caster is meant to save you hours and hours of work. But once the story is generated, you could take that and just weave it in yourself with your own words, right? And you can say, like, if you wanted to say, and then there was that incredible, impactful time where they had their first child, that you brought them together. You can write that yourself, right? So this is not prescriptive in the sense of you write that story, that's it, that goes in the script, it's not going to change. You edit and add all along the way, even when you generate the final draft. And of course, even after you export it to Word, you can always be changing it. You're never locked in efficiently. There's always room to edit, change, and add. My goodness, it has been an hour already. Absolutely love hanging out with you. Let's see. No other questions. Okay, so it was speaking. What do I do with my binder when I'm speaking? How do I keep my place? So yeah, my binder is quite thick. I have the tabs a little bit. I really know really well where I am. This is all story. You have numbers, so you can come up with things on your own where maybe you want to write vows on the bottom. Maybe you want to write ring exchange on the bottom here. And I do a lot of this by hand. I write notes. I really like getting pencil happy. You see here how at the end I circled the last name. This was closing remarks, photos with family in the garden, 5:45, 6. I'm doing that all before. I'm doing that on site. I've already tried to memorize it, but then I kind of quiz myself and do those things so that when my eye falls on it, and there are times where after the signing, I'm like, okay, when was the reception again? I just have to throw my binder open, and I've circled and underlined while I'm walking to the front sometimes to do these closing remarks. So look, I'll be like, photo of the family in the garden, 5:45. That's all I needed. I just needed those 3 seconds to then say the proper closing remarks. Do things like that with your script. Paper, that's why to me paper still wins. Maybe I'm a dinosaur, but your paper and your binder are never going to shut down. They're never going to overheat in the sun, etc., etc. And you can mark them up with a pencil, pen, highlighter, make notes in the margins, top and bottom. I absolutely love that. To me, paper trumps every single time. Okay, Mitt says, check out Chrono Grip. That's right. So Mitt, I think Mitt has shares in Chrono Grip. It's amazing. He shared that with me. It's a strap that you can put, it clips here and here. I really, really like that idea. It's really cool. I think I am going to check that out. It would be really cool to have that discreetly on my binder as well. Friends, sharing Thursdays with you is such a joy that it brings us to the end of today's weekly wedding prep live. If you want to become a member, grab the course, unboringweddingacademy.com, pro course, unboringweddingacademy.com/pro. That's all about the business side of officiating. It's a separate course from the first one. The first one is about the ceremony and this style and system. And it comes with Officiantly, one use. Like Dale, you can actually grab a subscription to Officiantly, officiant.ly, unlimited ceremonies for a year. And so you can go that way. Friends, I am thrilled to have spent this time with you. I'll be here again 1 week from today, same time, same place, same channel. Check your email for the links. You can see the replay of this as well on my YouTube channel. Just go to the live area and you can see all the stream replays live. Looking forward to next week with you. We'll tackle some questions and things we didn't get time for today. Continue to send me your questions. I love spending this time with you. Thank you so much, friends. Have a wonderful weekend of officiating, and I will see you next week. And until then, marry on. Have a good one.